Hi, I'm Grant Robinson. We're looking back on 10 years since TVA's ash spill here at the Kingston plant. All through the cleanup process and even today, TVA has never stopped burning coal and making more ash. So what happens with all that waste now? The Kingston spill started a chain reaction that transformed how coal ash is stored across the country. But change didn't come quickly.
This was a watershed moment. What happened here on December 22nd, 2008 actually kind of was what precipitated that national dialogue. It kind of got the ball rolling as far as what we should be doing with this material. And then
it took 6 years for the EPA to establish minimum requirements for storing waste produced by burning coal. Coal ash can have 4 to 10 times the amount of heavy metals than coal dust before it's burned. Because of that, environmentalists push to have coal ash classified as a hazardous waste.
It's big quantities of industrial sludge and waste, and it contains heavy metals and toxins like mercury, lead, and arsenic, and they don't go away either, except by leaking into and leaching into our groundwater and our rivers.
But the EPA classified coal ash as a solid waste, with the storage requirements the same as landfills that take household garbage.
All of our new facilities are built to today's requirements, and that requires a liner. But when these facilities were built in the 50s, there were no liners. That's how they were built. Is there anything wrong with that? Well, it's not as good as today's standard, but the fact of it is we retrofitted this one with a liner on top.
Now, more than 1/3 of coal ash at TVA power plants is sold to be reused in building materials like concrete. Ash that isn't reused is compacted in landfills with a liner on the bottom. What was the site of the wet pond at Kingston is now 240 acres of ash stacked 20 feet deep. TVA built a retaining wall around the landfill that should withstand a magnitude 6.0 earthquake. Then an impermeable liner was placed on top of the ash, but there's nothing on the bottom to keep it from seeping into the ground below. And critics say that method isn't safe enough.
the primary constituents in coal ash that we were most concerned about here was arsenic from the human health exposure standpoint, and then selenium more on the ecological side.
The EPA says arsenic levels at Kingston are 3 times higher than what occurs naturally, but that's not high enough to cause alarm. After the changes TVA took because of the ash spill, the Kingston site is TVA's poster child for how coal ash should be stored. But a decade after the Kingston disaster, TVA is tangled in lawsuits over problems caused by not changing how they store coal ash at other power plants across the state.
Breaking news, potential contamination near the source of Memphis's drinking water. The Tennessee Valley Authority told the state about high levels of arsenic, lead, and fluoride found in groundwater samples at the old Allen steam plant.
In both Middle and West Tennessee, leaking ash pits at TVA power plants posed risk to the drinking water of Nashville and Memphis.
The state of Tennessee itself has said that the way that TVA stores its coal ash violates Tennessee's own environmental laws here 10 years later, and that TVA needs to get the ash out of those unlined pits, and a federal court has held that TVA is violating the law.
TVA decided to excavate an ash pond in Memphis and put the ash in a modern lined landfill, but in court, TVA argued that method would be too expensive at its Gallatin plant outside of Nashville, and instead wants to close that pond by removing the water and putting a liner on top.
When you talk about environmental issues like this and closure of facilities, it always comes down to one thing, and that does it pose risk to the public? That's the question. We always have to answer that question. Do we pose unacceptable risk to the public? And the answer here is no, we do not. And how do we know that? Because we have all the data.
In Kingston, the water quality is now better than it was before the spill. Hundreds of sensors gauge water quality and seismic activity, and it's all monitored in real time at a command center in Chattanooga. Additionally, the spill prompted TVA to create a new division with the lone purpose of safely storing coal ash.
When you have something like this happen, it's a wake-up call, and it's a mandate to change the way you do business, to be more risk sensitive, to understand the consequences of a failure, to start mitigating, to understand risk and to mitigate those risks.
The ash spill is cleaned up and the old ponds are gone, but this disaster is still not settled.
If I know the dangers that I know today, I really wouldn't have went.
Coming up, hear from workers who say cleaning up this site costs them their health.